Good evening. Welcome to the last session of the day on roundtable discussion on sustainable energy security for the subcontinent. I welcome Mr. Arun Kumar Mukherjee, who is the mentor of our Energy Environment Committee, to take over the session. Sir, you are on mute. Sir, if you could unmute yourself.
Yeah. Thank you, Suchin. Good evening, everybody. And I also would like to extend warm welcome to our three distinguished guest speakers from Nepal, Bangladesh, and Bhutan in this roundtable discussion. The theme of the discussion is sustainable energy security for the subcontinent. It is well known that electricity plays a vital role in sustained economic growth, infrastructure development, poverty eradication, and security of a country. However, the need today is to provide the reliable, affordable, 24/7 power to everybody in the country for inclusive growth and development. Globally, the power systems are undergoing a phase of disruptive transformation due to climate change issues. The interaction between technological, economic, and political forces is catalyzing the most dramatic transformation today. The global electricity demand is supposed to go up by 30% by 2040. However, this growth will be multiple times for the subcontinent as the per capita consumption is much lower than any developed countries today. And there is huge opportunity to increase the consumption for improving the quality of life. The energy sector in SAARC region is on front line of concerns about climate change due to the dependence on natural, fossil, solid, liquid, and gaseous fuel. The transition of energy mix is a necessity for maintaining the sustainable energy security of a country. It is encouraging that for maintaining the sustainable growth, all the countries in the subcontinent are collaborating with each other, and cross-border trading is a part of energy security today. Every country, as a signatory in Paris Agreement, is now focusing on emission issue, meeting the challenges of ever-growing need of clean and green energy. The challenges are similar for every country on how to diversify from the naturally available energy resources. For India, it is from coal to renewable. Bangladesh, it is natural gas to renewable. Bhutan, from hydro to renewable. Nepal, from biomass hydro to renewable. The good part is, being a member of International Solar Alliance, the future roadmap for development is being charted together. We have heard from Mr. Amitabh that Government of India is deliberating with the idea of one sun, one world, one grid, which will allow flow of green energy across nation through one grid, tapping the global energy potential. The pandemic has resulted in both problems and opportunities. the demand has come down drastically, resulting in very low PLF and sometimes the shutting down of the plants. On the other hand, the cost of solar power has come down lower than the present traditional power cost. Also, the capital investment has come down substantially, making the solar project viable and more attractive to investors. Natural gas price has also come down, resulting in lower cost of generation. It is interesting that in this program we have enough opportunity to understand what is the energy scenario in India and how we are addressing it for the long term and medium term approaches, medium term policies. It is interesting to understand that how our neighboring countries are looking at the challenges of meeting the electricity available to all the citizens and the industry so that the growth can be inclusive. May I now request Mr. Ghising from Nepal Electricity Authority, Managing Director, to share his experience on how the electricity sector is shaping up in Nepal. Mr. Ghising.
Yes, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Yes, are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, you are audible.
So, yeah. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak something about Nepal's power sector. At present, in Nepal, generation capacity is around 1400 megawatt, and our demand is also at the same level, around 1300 to 1400 megawatt. The generation projects are almost all the generation projects are hydropower projects. 100% hydropower generation. We have the supply of hydropower projects mainly can be supplied during wet season. Wet season is generation is more in wet season, and dry season we have very less generation. So due to less generation in dry season, after December, we have some import from India, mainly during December, January, February, and March, April, May. We have more import from India, and the less import from India in wet season. Sometimes we have some surplus in the different times of the day, during night time and during daytime. Sometimes we have some surplus, but peak time in wet season also we have to import some energy from India. So generally we have import from India through NBVN and PTC from different points. Actually, from last 3 to 4 years, NBVN is the major supplier to Nepal's power during mainly in dry season. We have many hydropower projects under construction. Around 6,000 megawatt hydropower projects are now at different stages of construction. There are the hydropower potentials of more than 43,000 megawatt financially, economically viable hydropower projects. But still, they are not exploited yet. Only very few projects are being exploited and are under construction. The big projects, major projects, are not still are not under development. We have many reservoir project sites, many big reservoir project sites. Even one project we have 10,000 megawatt reservoir project sites. Different river basins have different hydropower potentials, but those hydropower project sites are not developed yet. So we have great potential of hydropower, and this subcontinent has big demand, electricity demand. I think just now, I think you have mentioned that demand of the subcontinent is still at the lower side. Per capita consumption, if we calculate it will not exceed more than 1,200 units per capita. So demand is still at the lower side, and in future demand will come. More and more demand will come. If we expect development in the future, the demand will be more in subcontinent, this subcontinent. And the energy resources, India, as you said, that India is going towards solar projects, solar energy, towards solar energy. But how we can make inclusive growth and green energy, how we can get green energy in this subcontinent. I think to get the reliable supply and green energy and inclusive growth, to get inclusive growth with the reliable supply of energy, I think hydropower in this subcontinent should be exploited very soon. Solar may be the cost effective, but if there is no hydropower or peaking hydropower, then solar may not be the reliable source for future energy. So if we can develop hydropower in Nepal and Bhutan, all the resources, I think these hydropower potential can be the reservoir and the battery storage for those renewables also. If we can exploit all these reservoir sites of Nepal, that will give more benefit to the downstream countries for other benefits also. This flood control and irrigation benefit, and those can also be accounted for this regional benefit. I think when we consume and when we utilize our hydropower electricity, then that will give more benefit to the downstream countries also. For flood control, if we see Nepal's rivers flowing to Gangas, almost 45% of the flow of wet season is from Nepal's hydropower projects, Nepal's rivers. So if we can control, regulate Nepal's hydropower, Nepal's river basin, then that can also benefit flood control in Ganga basin, mainly in the area of Bihar and UP. So this can be the one benefit that we can achieve from this hydropower generation. And during dry season, Ganga River basin can be flooded with hydropower generation. So in dry season, the lean flow of Ganga can be augmented, and that can be utilized for different benefits. So not only the energy benefit through hydropower in Nepal or maybe in Bangladesh, Bhutan, there are other benefits that can be shared between these subcontinental countries. So for this energy trading between Nepal and India, maybe in Bangladesh, and between Bhutan and this countries of this subcontinent, sub-regional countries, cross-border infrastructures, transmission lines are being built in this region. We have been already connected to 400 kV transmission line between Nepal and India. And another second cross-border transmission line, Butol-Gorakhpur transmission line is under implementation, 400 kV transmission line. And there are 11 400 kV transmission lines already in pipeline between Nepal and India. That may interconnect between Nepal, India, and Bhutan, Bangladesh also. So this sub-regional group countries can benefit from this transmission infrastructure also. So Nepal is now power importing country. By next year onwards, we may be exporting in wet season. Because within 1 year, we are going to generate additional 1,300 megawatt in Nepal. The additional generation will be added. So that energy can be exported to India in wet season. And we have very good complementarity between Nepal, India, and Bangladesh, Bhutan, because our generation is more during wet season, and demand is more during wet season in this India and Bangladesh due to hot season. And our generation increases those months. So in dry season we have more demand, but our generation reduces by 1/3, by 2/3 maybe. So this complements each other. That when demand increases, our generation increases. When demand decreases, our generation also decreases. So this is very good complementing each other. So if solar is more in India, this generation of solar in the system is becoming more and more percentage share of solar when becomes more in India or in Bangladesh. And then this reliability of the system will be, I think, another constraint. So that when solar becomes, solar is out, hydropower can immediately peak the system. So this regional balance for reliability and quality of supply, and for inclusion of this all types of generation mix, Nepal's hydropower potential should be exploited, and I think we have to look into this Nepal's hydropower, Bhutan's hydropower to be developed as soon as possible, so that the resources for of these other resources, maybe gas in Bangladesh, coal in Bhutan, coal in India, can be deferred for future generation. If we don't exploit hydropower soon, then that is going to be spilled forever. So it is the need of the time that everybody should focus to generate hydropower from Nepal, this mountainous countries, and utilize as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gesing. Only thing, what I understand, you also have the wind power possibility of 3,000 megawatt, and there are also a lot of challenges in hydropower generation, particularly with the heavy rain and sliding of the mountain boulders and etc. Would you like to share with us how you are handling these challenges?
Actually, geological condition of these mountainous areas, we have to take care of those issues also. I think we have been developing hydropower in this mountainous area from I think from last 20, 30, 40 years. During construction time, it may be there may be some geological surprises we see. After construction, I think for runoff river, we have different type of projects: runoff river projects, peaking runoff river projects, and reservoir projects. After construction, I think we don't see any problems. We have one reservoir projects during last year's this earthquake time also. There is no any casualties in hydropower projects. I think those projects are safe. But during construction time, we have to see carefully. The geological surprises may come, but after construction, it's safe. For reservoir projects, I think if there are big dams, may have some problem during this earthquake time and this natural calamities. But the design aspect, we have to look into the design. We have already tested this Rockfield Dam of one of the project, Kulekhani project. It's a long time, I think 30 years. It has been already past 30 years. There is any problem during the earthquake time and any in other flood season also. So it is the design issue and how we handle the areas. Mostly our rivers flow from mountains to hills to plains, and the areas where we build the dams are the very narrow gorges. So the narrow gorges, and after that, before that narrow gorges, there are flat areas where we can fill big reservoir areas are there. So resettlements are also very less. We don't have much resettlement in river basins. Only if the plain areas will have more river, more settlements. But in the hilly areas, there is mainly very few settlements. So resettlement issues are also very less. And dam areas are very narrow gorges. So those areas, I think they are not much fragile for this earthquake and everything. I think that those things are how we can manage. That is another part. I think this design part and the issues of geological investigation, the area selection of the areas where we have to build the dam and where we have to build the power houses. That is the technical part. But there won't be such landslide, and due to landslide there won't be any problem, because the areas where we select for the hydropower sites usually have good geology. We select the good geology for power house and dam site. And so there are very few landslide areas where we have to go for the power house access roads. When we build access roads, some areas may be affected by landslide, and the most of the power house in this region, mountainous areas are underground. Tunnels are underground and power houses are underground, and the underground structures are more safe for the hydropower projects.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Mr. K. Singh. We have noted that there is a huge potential, about 40,000 megawatt, which can be commercially exploited. And in future, if these are really developed, then definitely in this subcontinent, the flow of power or the green energy will be definitely easily possible. Thank you. May I now request Mr. Safiquddin, Managing Director, West Zone Power Company, Bangladesh Power Development Board, to please share your thoughts on social transformation through universal electricity access. In fact, in the earlier session, we had the understanding on the policy and the structural issue of the electricity development and energy development in Bangladesh from Mohammad Hussain. So I would request you that if you can share the situation at the micro level of demand supply management and how you are meeting the challenges of distribution, the system loss, etc. Mr. Safiquddin.
So you have to unmute yourself. Yeah. So you're not audible.
So is it now okay?
Yeah.
We can hear
Audible
you.
now.
Okay, thank you so
sir.
much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. So I have to use my share screen for presentation. So can I do this?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Unmute. So can you see my slides?
No.
Sir, you stop your presentation. First, you open your presentation, then share the
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah, I've opened my presentation already.
No, please stop your screen sharing. First, you open your presentation, then share. Yes, now we can see
Yeah.
you.
Now you can see.
Yes,
Yes.
sir. Flip to the slideshow.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
So good evening to everybody. First of all, I would like to thank the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industries for inviting me to participate in this 30th edition of Environment and Energy Conclave. The main theme is inclusive growth with resource security. Honorable Moderator Mr. Arun Mukherjee and all other participants in this discussion session. So I would like to say something about this very sustainable energy security. Actually, what we mean actually energy security. If you go there, as per International Energy Association's definition, which says that whenever the energy will be uninterrupted and affordable to all people, that is the precondition for energy security. So it involves with political, economic, environmental, social and technical issues. It has two aspects, long-term energy security and short-term energy security. If you say for long-term energy security, it can be achieved through investigation and planning for a long time, and not that, for example, if I say in context of our country, Bangladesh, we have prepared this PSMP, Power System Master Plan in 2016, which is about to be updated, revised due to the change situation. So this is a long-term energy security, and another one is short-term energy security. As you know that whenever there was scarcity of electricity, there was huge power shortage in our country. Then the government had to take short-term energy security in order to supply electricity to all the people. So in that case, whatever steps taken by the government is something like installations of small level generators by IPP that was done to mitigate the sufferings of the people due to power shortage. And if you say about access to electricity, as because we are talking about excess of electricity, actually as per World Bank version, the excess of electricity can be defined as the ability to avail energy that is adequate, available when needed, reliable, of good quality, convenient, affordable, legal, healthy, and safe for all required energy services. So this very excess of electricity also includes this very framework into consideration. That is, how many hours electricity is available, how affordable is it, how many appliances households could likely operate. These are the framework we have to take into consideration whenever we think about access to electricity. And whenever we talk about access of electricity to household, then we have to measure the capacity, the quantity of electricity required to household, availability or duration of the electricity access, reliability, quality, affordability, legality, and health and safety. Of course, we are coming to the social transformation, which is very much linked to access to electricity, and particularly universal access to electricity. Because this very access to electricity, actually, it is for improving living standards, and it is indispensable for eradicating poverty and achieving sustainable development. And as you know, electrification provides a solid basis for development of local communities. So we can say, whenever we say about access to electricity, we mean safe, potable water, food security, modern health services, better health conditions, employment, livelihood, lighting, information, communication, entertainment, education, and much more. Actually, electricity gives relief or releases from hard work to humankind, increases productive working hours and overall productivity, provides opportunities for self-employment, in particular for women in rural areas. So we can say electricity access has become one of the intractable challenges in development, and therefore emblematic of the call for poverty eradication and economic and social transformation. I'm not going into in depth of all discussion about SDGs goal, which actually supports the social transformation. And actually, we can think that all SDG targets are linked to social transformation. Or in that case, we are seeing that in SDG target 7 on energy, which says ensuring access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. So if you recognize all the SDGs goal, that you will find none of the other SDGs can be achieved without adequate access to energy services. If you come to some of the SDG goals, for example, no poverty, gender equality, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, all requires access of electricity. So this requires a social transformation. If you come to the SDG 2 goal, zero hunger, clean water, and sanitation, everything depends on the access of electricity, and that requires social transformation. SDGs goals are also linked to good health and well-being, which is said in SDG 3. For example, I can give you an example which I have collected data from various media, and we have come to know that about 4 million people die prematurely by using polluting fuels, especially in the households for cooking, heating, and lighting without adequate ventilation. And in that case, women and children suffer most. So we can say whatever measure is taken for eradicating this very, the pollution at different levels due to fossil fuels use, still then we can say, and it is estimated that 1 billion people globally are served by health facilities without electricity. So another SDG 4 goal is quality education. It is also, it also depends on electricity availability in all sphere of life, in all sections of the people and country. Without access of electricity, there cannot be good educational environment in any area, any zone. So, and on the other hand, now we are dependent on IT facilities, ICT uses. So in that case, you can say that if you don't have better educational tools using IT facilities, ICT, the quality education cannot be achieved. So if you come to the climate action SDG 13, we are also emitting carbon dioxide gas, but still then we are trying to limit our carbon dioxide gas emission by introducing more and more renewable energy for electricity access. And at the same time, reliable electricity access can improve the resilience of households and communities to catastrophic impacts of climate change, such as drought, losses in agricultural productivity, and extreme events. So actually, where we stand in global perspective, if you see the World Bank Energy Progress Report of 2019, we are finding that over 840 million people without access to electricity. And some 80% of those without electricity live in rural areas or in informal urban settlements. And if you see 1 billion suffer poor quality service, the majority of whom live in peri-urban or rural areas of sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. Close to 3 billion people lack access to clean forms of cooking energy, having rely heavily on biomass fuels combusted on inefficient appliances, often in unventilated cooking areas. So whatever data we have collected still leaves 66 million people without access in 2030 who are either remote or poor or both. If you consider the perspective of Bangladesh regarding access of electricity, our vision is very much clear, in line with the SDGs. That is the vision: universal access to quality electricity in a cost-effective and affordable manner. Mission: ensuring reliable electricity for all by 2021 through integrated development of power generation, transmission, and distribution system. In this very slide, I have tried to put up the scenario in last 11 years between 2009 and 2019. There you have seen that a lot of improvements have been done in terms of new power plant, addition of generation, peak demand has been increased, transmission line has been constructed, grid substation capacity has been increased, distribution line has been constructed, people with electricity access is increased, per capita generation is increased, number of consumers is also increased, number of irrigation consumer pumps is also increased, ADP allotment is also increased, distribution system loss, what you are talking about, has been reduced to a substantial amount. If you say about the fuel mix, that is here we are seeing that we have the fuel mix, coal 2%, that was the least one, gas 48%, captive 10%, renewable 3%, imported 5%, high-speed diesel 8%, and HFO 24%. So still then, we could not go beyond using fossil fuel to the maximum. I mean, we have calculated that we have the fossil fuels use of 96.7% of total generation. Now we are coming to renewable energy status. Here we are showing it. We have the solar, wind, hydro. Off-grid there is no off-grid hydro. On-grid hydro we have biogas to electricity, biomass to electricity. So here we see the solar is the highest one, 413.58 megawatt, around 64%. Hydro is 230 megawatt, 36%, wind 2.99%. So in this respect, I would like to say that if we consider solar, we have the potentiality here because the irradiation is very good here, but we have some constraint for solar addition because we have the limited space but a huge population. That is the main constraint of the land. And we cannot destroy the arable land, for that reason. We cannot expand the solar generation, but still then we are trying for disruptive technology to use for solar capacity build-up. So in that case, we are thinking about floating, I mean the solar, you know it, floating solar. We are thinking to put up solar, panel to all government government offices, even to the institutions, even to the educational institutions. We are planning to do that in order to increase the solar generation. Wind, we have the wind generation, but is a minimum quantity, you know. And for that particular reason, what you are talking about is about the wind resources. We have the wind resources, but not up to the level, the good level, I would say, because we have just carried out this very wind velocity measuring, that's where wind mapping. There we have found that the speed of the wind is moderate level. So we are trying to go for installations of the wind turbines to that sort of area where the wind speed is good enough for wind energy potentiality. So, and of course, still now we don't have any offshore turbines. All are in onshore. So we are trying to exploit this very offshore wind energy potentiality. We are working on it. So in future, we think that we will go for offshore wind generation. Hydro, actually, we don't have hydro potentiality because our contour of land, geographical conditions and contour of land is not of that type, so that we can exploit hydro potentiality from any part. So actually, we cannot go for hydro generation. Biogas to electricity, that is going on. Biomass to electricity is going on. So in that case, we are very much optimistic about the solar capacity build-up and addition to solar generation in future, as well as wind generation up to that very level. Actually, for electricity availability and access to electricity, we are importing from India some 160 megawatt of electricity, as you know, and we have the target in 2030 for 3,500 to 8,500 megawatt, and for 2041 it would be 9,000 megawatt, and we are contemplating to import this very electricity from Myanmar, Nepal, and Bhutan, all those from all those various countries. As you say, we have the success stories as well in the renewable energy. As you know, that on that very day we are talking about this very solar home system. So before that, I would like to show some images of the peak images here, where you are seeing that in the rural areas, people used to use candles or kerosene lamps for education or some homeworks, household works. But now what they are doing, you see here, due to electrification to the Upazila level. So around, you see here that already 257 Upazilas electrification is completed. Total Upazilas number is 461, out of that 257 completed, and 198 numbers waiting for inauguration. So we are going to electrify 84,800 numbers. Out of that, 82,305 numbers have been electrified already. So in every respect, we are trying our level best to give access to electricity to all spheres of our area. So here we have tried to show some images. As you have seen here, the people in the rural areas are using laptop or computer. The students are studying in the light. I mean the electricity. And also you are seeing a lady is working with PCB, printed circuit board. So it's a tremendous success story for Bangladesh, I would say. So as you say, the solar home system, it is another way to make electricity accessible to all. And by this time, we have installed more than 4.5 million solar home system. And about, through this very process, 13 billion people are getting solar electricity. And you know that this work is going on in a very tremendous pace, speed, I would say. Around 65,000 solar home systems are now being installed every month. So average year-to-year installation growth is about 58%. And actually, if you consider the kerosene which were used earlier for these very lamp and other uses, it is actually this very solar home system has replaced 1,80,000 tons of kerosene per year. And so we can say around 70,000 people are directly or indirectly involved with this very program. So another interesting thing you are seeing that we have introduced solar powered board schools for the benefit of isolated waterside communities, because in our rural areas there are some areas where people are not residing in the main land, but of course not in the areas where all facilities are available. For example, educational institutions, clinics, and all other utilities. They are who are residing beside the river. For those people, we have introduced solar powered board schools, and you are seeing there the class is going on. Teachers are taking class, as well as you are seeing even in the board, the students are learning with computers. And another success stories are solar irrigation pumps in rural areas. That is also you are seeing in the images that earlier what we used to do in the irrigation pumps, those were actually diesel operated engines. Now those are being replaced by solar irrigation pumps, and you see the smile on the face of those very people with the water coming out from the solar irrigation pumps. So the farmers are also harvesting in the field. And also another development is our solar-based drinking water system in coastal areas, because in coastal areas due to salinity, the drinking water availability is scarce. So there we have introduced 120 solar-based drinking water systems in the coastal areas through sustainable energy for development. So through that process, drinking water is made available to the people residing there. Another success story is the prepayment and smart prepayment metering in order to reduce energy wastage and also increasing transparency, consumer convenience and control. Because what our government always says that we have to reduce the energy wastages, and as well as we have to improve the customer service. Keeping it in our mind, just we have introduced very smart prepayment metering system, replacing age-old, that analog and digital postpaid meters. So the main feature here is with the prepayment meter, as you know, that people don't need to go to the banks for paying their bills now. They can pay the bill. Earlier, whenever we introduced prepayment meter, not a smart prepayment meter, then people had to go to the vending station for vending their cards or take the token. But now, even they don't need to go to the vending stations. Rather, they can pay the bill in advance through mobile apps. So from anywhere, any place, at any time, it could be at dead of night, at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, even in the early morning. There is no such problem in paying the bill. That is a revolution in our country, I would say. Through that very process, with around 6 distribution utilities so far installed, you have seen here, the target was by June 2021, it was 66,56,030. So by June 2020, the achievement is 34,53,344. And I would like to inform you that in the right side you see Bangladesh Smart Electrical Company Limited. This factory has been installed in joint venture with a foreign company under Western Power Distribution Company. Now we are manufacturing this prepayment, not only prepayment, the smart prepayment meter in that very factory to utilize it in our all utilities. So it is also an achievement or success story in our country in the field of smart prepayment metering. Carbon emission, it is also there. We have to, though the global share is very negligible, as you see here, 0.21%, but still then we are concerned about it, and we are trying to reduce this very carbon emission by avoiding this very fossil fuel. Still now we are trying to mitigate this very problem. But until and unless we can achieve substantial generation addition in renewable energy, we cannot say that we could do better in carbon emission reduction. If you say about the achievement, we have achieved a lot during these 11 years. Where our generation has been increased. Accessible electricity is now 97.87% growth. That is 93% accessibility has been achieved in our country. Rate of literacy is increased. Mobile phone subscription increased. GDP per capita increased. Population below national poverty line is decreased. Population below international poverty line, it is also decreased. Unemployment rate increased. Unemployment rate decreased. Infant mortality rate decreased, which is very common in our rural areas, as you know. Maternal mortality rate also decreased because of the accessible electricity we could make to the remote areas of the country. Life expectancy is also increased. Average yield rate of paddy is also increased due to the irrigation problem that has been eradicated with the renewable energy. I mean, this very photovoltaic irrigation pump. Agricultural GDP is also increased substantially. We have the future plan. Of course, after seeing this slide, you could be somewhat pessimistic because of the coal, which is about by 2030 we have the plan for mixed fuel, and it could be coal. With our own and imported 151%, nuclear 10%, renewable 7%, cross-border import 9%, gas and LNG 23%. It could looks like disappointing, but because of the issue, what I mentioned earlier at the initial stage, because the price of the energy or the power should be minimum to the or affordable to the people. That is the main issue, because in order to reduce the cost of the energy unit, we are planning to use this very coal which is available in our land and also importing it. So this is we are doing for generation addition. Moreover, we are also giving emphasis to capacity build up in solar generation or the renewable generation. We have also challenges because of this very improvement in the generation as well as some planning. We need huge capacity addition in the generation, transmission, distribution. We are going to introduce nuclear power, solar, wind and other renewable energy, high voltage transmission lines for better voltage in the remote corner of the country. We need the communication backbone, geographic information system, smart PPM metering, SCADA automation, smart grid, underground PDS, gas insulator service, etc. Electrification of islands. It is also a challenge because there are a number of islands where there is no electricity from the grid line. By this time we have introduced renewable energy. For example, we are talking about the solar home system, and also we are going to introduce mini grids over there, and also in some of the grid tied areas we have introduced that very grid tied solar generation. We need to develop the human resources as well as we need huge investment requirement for engagement of private funding, attracting development partners, and we also need policy reformation. So we can say in 2018 we have incorporated the private generation private generation entrepreneur, private financing it is about 44% and government financing 56%. So we have also the problem or challenges in the excess generation capacity, because we have the additional or surplus of generation. So we have the problem of waste of generation capacity, low efficiency, generation cost increase, and also poor plant load factor. As we have come to know as per data available for 2018 in India, it is 65.240%, and in Bangladesh it is 54% as the data available in May 2019. So what could be the way out from this very excess generation capacity? That is, the government is planning something like this, phasing out of high cost, less efficient IPPs plants, because when there was a severe scarcity of power, electricity in our country, then the government invited IPPs to install the generation, and we are now, because we have become surplus in the generation, so we are trying to phasing out of high cost, less efficient IPPs plants, revisiting national generation plan, because already we have said that we have the master plan. So we are also revisiting the national generation plan in order to mitigate this very problem. Cross-border trade export, it is also of high priority to the government, because efficient use of ideal generation capacity can be usable whenever there could be cross-border trade or export. Improvement of plant load factor can be done. We can enhance competition across regional markets, and also we can increase grid stability through HVDC interconnection, which has already been done with India. We are also trying to improve the load factor improvement. So in that case, we are using holiday staggering, tariff modification, raising consumer awareness, something like this. Challenges now is another new challenges we are coming across is due to pandemic situation, because the reduction in demand has drastically taken place, reduction in demand, and we have poor utilization of generation capacity now. So ultimately, what has happened? Drastic fall in productivity, and also economic degradation, and also degradation in all sense. That is due to pandemic situation. So now the carbon emission reduction is the current trend is somewhat like this, as I have shown in the graph from 2009 to 2018. We would say that we have been trying hard to reduce this very carbon dioxide emission as far as possible. So we are just sticking to that very greenhouse gas emission reductions by 2030, unconditionally 5%, and with international support, it can be reduced to 15%.
Mr. Safiguddin, if you can finish your fast.
Yeah, I'm going to finish it, no problem. So these are the scenario. So you can say that we are trying our level best to introduce the renewable energy in order to make electricity accessible to all corners of the country. And for that, this is the last slide I'm showing you, that because already one of the participants has told that we are just, if you cross-border import and export is done, electricity trade is done, then we can mitigate the sufferings of the people still who don't have access of electricity. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Safiguddin. Excellent presentation. It's such a holistic parameters of how the inclusive growth and accessibility can be provided by addressing all the areas available to a generating and distributing company and a country, which is also heartening to see how the every pillar of the SDG you have been able to integrate with your planning and action plan. Thank you very, very much. May I now request Mr. Sonam Tobje, Chief Executive Officer, Bhutan Power Corporation Limited, to share the scenario in his country.
Hello, good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yes, Mr. Tobje. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Actually, when we are discussing about the power scenario in here, today I am in a blackout in the western part of the country, so there's some problem in the grid, so you will not be able to see me.
Okay.
Because I'm sitting in the dark. Anyway, very, very good evening. First of all, let me take the opportunity to thank the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry for giving me this opportunity to speak on such an important forum and gathering on the theme inclusive growth with resource security. The topic that I would like to speak is on the happiness in universal renewable energy access. I have divided my talks into four components. The first is that I will give you a brief macroeconomic data related to the electricity related resources. Then I will talk on the access to electricity in Bhutan. Then I will talk on the achievements, what we have been able to achieve. Then what is the impact of the rural electrification on the people of Bhutan and on the energy security and the initiatives that we are trying to take to modernize our grid system.
Only request is, Mr. Tobje, we are already late, so if you can finish it up everything by 15 minutes.
Yeah, it should take less than that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so our total generation is around 2,326 megawatt plus 800 plus 8 megawatt of mini hydels, and around 2,900 hydro is under construction, work in progress. Our peak load is around 388 megawatt, of which of the total generation, so 71% of energy that we generate is exported to India. Our global loss is 6.52%. BPC, we serve around 200,000 plus customers, of which 81% of customers are residential, and the bulk of the energy that we consume in Bhutan is consumed by the industries. Now, with regard to the energy sources, Bhutan, because of the swift flowing rivers that we have, our main source of energy is through hydro. Energy mix consists primarily of hydroelectricity, owing to the abundant ability of fast flowing rivers. Therefore, we are fully hydro based. Bhutan enjoys the green renewable energy access due to the abundance of the hydropower resources, of which we have harnessed around 2,335 megawatt. And I'm happy to report that till date we are carbon negative. Coming to the access to electricity, now let me take this opportunity to say that Bhutan is blessed with enlightened and visionary leadership, has always pursued and promoted green, sustainable development. Development philosophy of the country is based on gross national happiness, which enshrines the infinite vision of our monarchs and sentiments of our citizens, which promotes sustainable development while conserving our pristine environment through good governance system. Happiness to the people of the country is key for any developmental activities that is to be initiated by the government. Universal renewable energy access is therefore one of the key development enablers among many others, such as road, health facilities. Having access to clean and renewable energy can improve one's livelihood and well-being with improved service deliveries and business opportunities. Therefore, rural electrification is an integral part of Bhutan's development strategy to elevate property, to improve the quality of life, to reduce the use of forest resources as a means of fuel source, and to stimulate economic, social development in rural areas. Subsequently, the 5-year plans that we have initiated started a large-scale rural electrification program. Now, the vision of Peace, Prosperity and Happiness document that was published in May 1999 prioritized electrification of the rural population by the end of 2020. We are in the mid of 2020 today. And the rural electrification master plan was then completed by 2005. To elevate property and stimulate inclusive economic development, the government began large-scale rural electrification process. Accordingly, Bhutan has accelerated the time frame to achieve universal access to electricity and to make modern energy available to the entire population. Therefore, electricity for all by 2020 was brought forward to 2017, and the government further brought forward aggressively to 2013 for the last mile connectivity. With the modest electricity coverage of 30% in 2002, covering roughly around 27,000 rural customers, Bhutan today has successfully achieved electricity coverage of 99.99%, constituting around 120,000 rural customers. Now, with the RE coverage, is not technically or economically feasible. Nonetheless, the government to connect to grid for promoting greater economic activity. Therefore, universal electrification of Bhutan is an extraordinary accomplishment given the speed at which we have electrified in spite of the difficult terrain of the mountainous country. Now, when I have said that we have achieved 99.99% electrification, these were not without challenges. The journey was tough. The implementation of these programs posed challenge mainly due to difficult geographical terrain, and site accessibility was the major challenge. Transportation of the materials were also the main challenge. Despite all these challenges, with the support of the government, with the support of the local community who contributed so much for rural electrification, so we were able to overcome all these challenges. Now today, post-electrification, now the challenge is for us to operate, maintain and provide reliable power, especially in summer due to monsoon. Now, to make the electricity sustainable, the government has given 100 units free to the rural homes. Now, the 100 units free are being assessed based on the typical electricity consumption by the rural homes, that is taking lighting and cooking into consideration. The post-rural electrification, the social studies were conducted, so which has showed that the RE has greatly helped to boost the rural economy, improve the health of the rural population, improve the hygiene and sanitation in rural homes. School-going children can have, it was found that the school-going children can have more hours to study, and this has also reduced dependence on fuel wood. Now, as the socio-economic development of the country progresses, electricity consumption is expected to increase, thus posing a considerable risk on Bhutan's energy security. Now, when coming to the energy security, before resorting to international level, the policy is to look for an alternative energy within the country. Towards this, we are now venturing into wind power and solar power as a pilot project. So we BPC have established a 600 kilowatt wind energy, which is doing fine. We have also we are also going to construct a 180 kilowatt solar power on a pilot basis. Such program will help in achieving watt of wind farm, which is in active consideration with the help of Asian Development Donor Financing. So government is vigorously pursuing on this so that we are able to achieve energy security within the country. So with the electricity coverage of 99% and all our transmission system in place for distributing energy within the country and for facilitating energy wheeling to India, now we are working on modernizing our network system. We are working on smart grid. We are working on distribution automation system, and we are in the midst of modernizing our grid system, especially with the main thrust on automation. Now, with the COVID pandemic today, the COVID pandemic has taught utilities around the world, including us, to front load and take initiatives in our grid synchronization, grid automation, and smart grid like any other utilities. So we are also pursuing on this. Currently, Bhutan today is in lockdown since August 11, 2020. Most of the economic activities are at halt. The most that has suffered are the tourism and industry sector, the hospitality sector. The government is trying hard to keep afloat the economic activities. We are fortunate to have His Majesty the King at the front lines leading the battle against the pandemic. BPC is trying its best to provide electricity to all the customers despite the lockdown, and in particular to medical facilities in the country. We are also impacted by the pandemic. Our demand for energy has come down, especially from the industries, and from the hospitality sector. Nevertheless, we are working towards keeping our activities afloat and planning for the future, so that post-lockdown, post-pandemic, we are able to immediately recover and take initiatives so that we are able to give our electricity supply to our customers qualitatively and efficiently, making all the customers in Bhutan happy. Thank you, and Tashi Delek.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tobje. It was very interesting presentation and sharing. And we thank you specially for taking the pain, despite not having the power connection. You have made sure that you are joining this round information and all your efforts, how you are making the electricity accessibility inclusive. Thank you very much.
So the light
Yeah.
has come in.
Yeah, I can see you now. Thank you very much.
Yes, Ongona back again.
Oh, Ongona.
So we are closing the first day here. Tomorrow, please join us again. We have very interesting session. The Honorable Minister in charge of Power of Government of West Bengal, he will be opening the session. Then we'll have a session on Sundarbans, then e-mobility, and another session with youths on what they think of sustainability. So join us tomorrow. Till then, bye. See you.
Bye. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night to everybody.